Hello! If you've been here before, or you've been hanging around for a while, you probably recognise this thing from my works in progress video. And you may be thinking, gosh, it's only March, Will, you're already that far ahead. No, that's not what this is. It's not a works in progress video. As you can probably tell from the title, which I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but it's probably not going to be anything to do with works in progress. Then again, maybe it sort of heralds it because of the way that this conversation topic combines with that conversation topic. Anyway, the point is, this is my collection point. It is how I store all of my ideas for books and stuff. And if you haven't been here before, I have 6 books out, 1 book projected to come out this year, and about 1,000 more books in my brain. And more specifically, 13 now, because I just finished one. It's now in editing. But 13 on the go and 1 in editing. So, you know, woohoo. So I thought it was high time to have a conversation about how exactly I track my ideas, because I keep saying the thing of don't just follow the plot bunny, which is, I do recommend it as good advice. And like I've said that before, it is good advice. Don't just follow every plot bunny that comes to mind or you'll never finish anything. And I actually have like a whole anecdotal evidence for that, which is part of what we're going to get into today as we deep dive into what is this and how do I use it. And again, it's my collection point. Answer. No. A question asked and answered. No. We'll get more specific. What is a collection point? And why and how and whatnot. So when I started writing, I was young. Well, I was. But more specifically, I've been writing since I could contemplate writing, right? I've been obsessed with books since I was a kid. I've been obsessed with the idea of writing a book since I was a kid. And now I have done it many times. But it took me till 2019 to actually get to the end of a book. Must have been 2018, because it's the same year I got married. It got me to get to the actual ending of a book, to close out a book and be able to give it to someone and say, this is a whole book, right? It took me till 2021 to get it to a publishable standard, but considering that means that like it's been incalculable years of writing before that moment, how is it that it took me until 2018 to finish a book, right? Well, the reason it took so long, to my mind and my logic, is that I was subject to the plot bunny. The reason that I advise not following every plot bunny is that for a long time before that point, every time I had a new idea for a book or a story, I would just start writing that thing. I'd basically abandon whatever came before and I would start writing that thing, and then I would keep writing that thing and whoosh, you never go back to the old thing, do you? Maybe you do. I never went back to the old thing and I never finished anything ever. And that's not the only reason that I never got to the end of a story. Endings are very, very difficult, and it's something that I could potentially talk about another time. But endings are particularly difficult because you're trying to wrap up a lot of different things in one go, in a way that resolves the story but doesn't feel like it's too resolve-y. It's like a whole thing. And so when I started, God, it wasn't even when I started finishing books that I figured this out. In 2018, when I first finished a book, I just finished it. I had all of these other ideas. I kept them in my brain and I didn't have anywhere specific to put them. Or I would write them down in whatever notebook I happened to be using at the time, right? That was pretty much always how it worked up until figuring this out. Was that I just had whatever notebook I was working in, like currently it's this one, whatever notebook I was working in was where it would go, right? It would just go in the current notebook. And then when I finished with that notebook went on a shelf or whatever, and I would never come back to it. And I would never remember where I'd written down that idea because right now, not in here, because I share this office with a whole other human being, but in my house, there is a box of notebooks from all the way through my teenage years, all the way up to like currently now notebooks keep getting put in that box because I don't want to get rid of any of them because they have ideas in them that I've never used, or they have pieces of story in them that I want access to. Or, you know, it's nice to look back sometimes and see how much my writing's improved since I was a teenager or a child. But I can't flick through this however many, it's a full-size box of notebooks. I can't flick through that every time I'm looking for an idea, every single one of those notebooks, and trying to read my handwriting is a challenge. Hold up, let me see if I can find you an example that's not filled with spoilers of any kind. I have shown my handwriting on here before. Ooh, this is a good one. OC Kiss Week 25, because, you know, that's already been posted. So this is my handwriting. Just please enjoy. Imagine trying to look through that for story ideas and book ideas. It's not an easy task, and everything is in the same colour of pen and everything is in the same style of handwriting, and sometimes I forget to put titles on pages. Like, I'm not a reliable person is what I'm saying. I'm very chaos gremlin brained. That's how I like to describe myself. It's also how my wife likes to describe me, so you know. So back in 2020, I think, probably. I would love to tell you for sure, but there was a whole fiasco. But back in 2020-ish, I tried bullet journaling. It didn't work out for me. I tried it. Well, it wasn't the right plan system for me. I have a whole new system now. And part of what I did with that was I created the very first version of my collection point, which, if, again, you've been around for a while, you'll recognise this is not the first one. The first one had butterflies and dragonflies all over the front. It was very pretty, and it was a normal width. Because, again, this is weird. This is a weird size. But that one got destroyed when we moved into this house because my cat got really stressed out and she peed on one of the bags. And that bag had my collection point, my draft, my printed draft of a novel, all of my expenses receipts for my business, so that was fun, and a couple of other like work related things, like book work related things. Those are all gone now. Oh, including my then annotated copy of Mary Ellen Breaking the Curse. So you know, obviously I threw that out because it smelled like cat pee. Oh, and all of my IPA Planet notes. I had to remake all of those. But such is life. These are the things you risk with pets, right? And like, there's no blame here because she was really stressed out because moving house is stressful. And we were staying temporarily with my mum, and that is also stressful because there's this whole other person in the house that she wasn't expecting in a brand new house that she'd never been to before. And obviously, like, because we were staying in my mum's house, it really smelled like my mum, as houses tend to do. Not to me, to the pets. As houses tend to do when you live in them and all your soft furnishings exist. She's fine now, the cat and my mum. Both of them are fine. Anyway, so I had to copy all of the stuff from that into here. But the point is that I started collecting all of my ideas for books and stories into that bullet journal. And then eventually I tapered off using it as a bullet journal, but I kept going back to it as this collection point within which to collect all of my story ideas, because I knew that I'd collected a bunch of them in there. So when the cat peed on it and it got completely destroyed, I decided I was going to make a new one. I was going to copy up all of my old ideas and I was going to keep using this. I was going to keep it in my desk because I have a desk now. I was going to keep it in my desk. I was going to keep it with my writing stuff, whichever way that happened, whether I continued to have a desk or not. I was going to keep it with my writing stuff and I was going to use it to collect all of my story ideas. So that if at any point I wanted to write a novel and I didn't have any ideas, or I very specifically knew that I'd come up with an idea but I wasn't sure what it was, I knew it could be in here. Also really fun because I copied everything word for word, including like the Guardian Cadet series early stuff, which is the stuff we're going to look at because obviously that's been out for a few years now, so it feels sort of safe. And like, I'm not giving you any big spoilers for upcoming stuff. So here we go. That is the premise of the collection point. It is where I collect all of my book ideas. And it is also now don't mind that piece of paper, where I collect other notes about publishing. So I have in here as well things like title conventions per series, and I have newsletter freebie ideas and promo plans and that kind of thing. Stuff that I want to be able to access, and stuff that I think is important for like books and the book business to be able to keep coming back to. Stuff that is important to be able to access whenever I need it, to remember that it exists and be able to find the, not the evidence that it exists, but like the guidelines I've made for myself. I don't have to hold myself to those exact guidelines, but sorry, you can hear Porthos trotting around. I don't have to hold myself to those exact guidelines, but the fact that they exist is helpful. Like the title convention guidelines, I'm not sticking to those. Like they were such a good idea, a good concept, and then I started doing these like month-long story challenges with specific like book worlds, and at that point it just becomes too much to try and fit them all into the same titling convention. Like if it was only a couple of short stories, then yeah, absolutely I could do it. But considering that I now have like, well, I did October 2024, so I have 31 short stories from October 2024 that are all set in book universes, so I gave up for that. Anyway, the first thing I put in this, as with almost anything else organisational for myself, is don't fall prey to pretty. This collection point is formed for function. Or some similar thing. In my planner, which again I have shown you, it's the purple thing. I have the same concept of a thing. It had to go in a little bit of a weird spot because it was the first place I could fit it. Never forget, function comes first. Now and always, it can be pretty later. But that's a big thing for me because I don't want to fall prey to the idea that something has to be pretty and therefore I can't use it. I also have my sticky note. So I have used 60 pages of this book, by the way. I am almost halfway through. I have my sticky note. This sticky note gets moved to whatever the next blank page is because it lays out the format for each of my things. So each of them has the word idea in the top corner, the title, a box for any potential future ISBNs, the premise, and any notes. So the premise is literally the premise of the story, and any notes include things like what inspired me, if there's a song or a TV series or a movie or a book that made me come up with this in the first place, or if there's anything that I need to know about to be able to write this thing. So like I have this concept of an idea. None of these are promises. As with my works in progress video, none of this is a promise. It's just sharing stuff. So I have this book idea that I'm calling Monster House. And in Monster House, I have the premise of the thing on this page. I can't show it to you. It's spoilers. And on the next page, I have characters and who they... Like, I have character concepts. So, like, in Monster House, we have, like, the witch. None of them have names. The witch and the Minotaur. And then, like, who they are to the wider story. So that's not necessarily part of the premise, because the premise is about, like, the person who owns the Monster House. And then everyone else that gets added in is an additional person. And potentially this could be, like, a serial or a series. And that's all noted in here. Serial or a series where each of these additional people is like their own unit of story. So if we go to a safe one, I have to find it, I'm so sorry. Okay. Icarus, Archaeology, IPA, Deity Awoken, Historian, Pirate. Here we go. Okay, so in... okay. I will warn you now that this page was written before 2021, right? I know I said I didn't get this until like, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. I think it was 2023. But again, I copied up from the PP Cat pages. I copied every single one of these up to, hang on, let me see if I can find where it stops saying rescued from. Oh, yeah. Up until page 32. So about half of what I've got. Up until page 32, every single one of these is copied exactly from the from the book that came before, and then any additions to that get noted as additions. So my Guardian Cadet series, Rescued from Dragonfly Notebook, oh, maybe Welcome to Humanity would have been a better choice, but oh well, I didn't. Yeah. My Guardian Cadet series page isn't called the Guardian Cadet series in this, it's called the Mary Arlen series, because that was the main character's name and that was the idea I had before I came up with Guardian Cadet series. And I didn't actually come up with that, that was my mum. The amount of titles I have got from my mum and my wife is astounding, by the way. The sheer volume of titles they come up with is just amazing. They're the best. The only titles I've come up with completely by myself are Welcome to Humanity and the IPA ones. All of the IPA ones are me, but like almost everything else, it's not me. So here we go. This is my Guardian Cadet series spread. So on my Guardian Cadet series spread, I have the fact that it's an idea. I'm so sorry, this is really hard to put forward. Okay, we'll do page 1 first. The fact that it's an idea, the title I had given it at that point. I can't see. Whoa, what genre it is? Oh yeah. The fact that it's rescued from the cat notebook, or the dragonfly notebook. Now it's whatever date I write it down on, and by date I just mean like month and year. Then we have book 1 premise. Oh no, yeah, book 1 premise, book 2 premise, theoretical book 3 that's never going to happen premise. And over the page, we have the ISBNs for book 1 and 2. We have this idea for a companion novel that's not happening. And the short stories that I've written for it and already published. And that is how I lay out all of these ideas. And if you want to take that as advice, feel free, but it's not. And that is literally how I lay out every single idea that ends up in this notebook, is exactly that concept. It is, if it's an idea, the word idea goes at the top of the page, the date that I write the idea down, again, month and year, a title, any title. Like I said, I've got Monster House. I've got Regency novel in space. One of them just says Barbarian. Like, these are not detailed real titles. These are, how do I remember what it's called? What can I put at the top of the page that is going to give me a quick idea of what this is? And then I have the premise. I have any place that you can find. I don't think I have that on the Guardian Cadet one, do I? Any place that you can find, like, where it's been written already. So, like, if you look, yeah. If you look at the Welcome to Humanity one, it says that it was published as short stories on nopoodles@wordpress.com in 2018. I think that's really blurry, but that is what that says. And then on the notes page, it says it's been published in June 2023. Because it was published in June 2023. It's that white spined one. That white spined one there. And like, this is how I keep all of my ideas. And I think the thing is that for a lot of the time, it's not really super necessary, right? Like, I have some of these ideas that are in here that I already started because I'm Chaos Gremlin. Like, I've got Clarabri in here as a concept. And pretty much immediately after writing it down in here, I started writing the Clarabri Chronicles, right? I have some of the Clarabri companions in here as well. And it's exactly the same deal. I just started writing them. The Icarus is in here, which obviously I did already share the first bit of that as a short story. And the short story is what inspired the next pieces of the narrative. And I have, again, already started writing that because, again, 2024 was a chaos year. And, like, there's some stuff in here that I really, really want to, but there is also some stuff in here that I really, really want to write that I haven't started yet. And I know I want to write it, but I don't have the time or the mental space to be able to really dig into what I am looking for from this particular project. So I've got this one book series, and again, this is not a work in progress, which is why it's not in my works in progress video. There's one called Archaeology Novels. And the premise of it is like a fantastical real world archaeology situation. So like it's a real world archaeologist. I have yet to decide if they're on a commercial dig or a research dig, but it's a real world archaeologist. And the plan is that I'm going to have some technical drawings in there as drawn by my wife, who was an archaeologist. Well, technically she will never stop being an archaeologist because she has a degree in archaeology. But she was a commercial archaeologist and she has done research digs. So like she is my main source for all of the information about how to be an archaeologist. But also like all of my friends are archaeologists. All of them. I'm not an archaeologist. I do not have an archaeology degree. I've never studied archaeology. But all of my friends are archaeologists. And like all of them, I swear. And like so I have all of this wealth of information about archaeology, and my plan is to have this archaeologist on a dig, commercial or research, I'm not sure, and to have some technical drawings in there as drawn by my wife, and basically something fantastical happens to them. Maybe they get tossed back in time. Maybe they awake some kind of historical curse or historical deity or historical something or other. And I know that this is a premise that has been used before, but I think from the perspective of someone who is so close to so many archaeologists and who has an archaeology wife who is going to read this book and vet it for the general public, it's going to be more accurate archaeology. Because I've been reading this one set of books lately that I really enjoy them, and because of the but and, I'm not going to share what they are, but the premise is archaeologists in space. Something fell over. The premise is archaeologists in space. And good concept. The actual archaeology reads like someone, or the author, not someone. The actual archaeology of it reads like the author went to a public dig. So a public dig is sort of separate from a research and a commercial dig. A public dig is where the general public are allowed to come and like experience what being an archaeologist is like for a day. And it's a very different format to your average actual archaeological dig, whether it's a research dig or a commercial dig. So a commercial dig is obviously on a very, very strict timeline. You get however long you get, and you've got to get it done in that time. With a research dig, you get a grant for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of research, and you can basically take as much of that time as you want, doing as many different pieces of it as you want. If you want to focus all of your time and energy on one specific spot, you can kind of do that. It's a little bit more complicated, but basic premise-wise. And then there are these public digs where people can come in and volunteer and like be an archaeologist for a day, and they get given the tools and they get given very brief training. But remember that to be a professional archaeologist, for the most part, you need an advanced degree. You need at least a bachelor's degree in archaeology. You will not be allowed on a site by and large if you do not have that, or a relevant comparable degree, right? But if it's between you and I have a degree in archaeology archaeologist, they're probably getting the job because they are an archaeologist. They have the requisite skills to be able to do the thing, right? It makes sense. It's like how you wouldn't hire a builder who's never built anything. But anyway, so it really does read like this public access archaeology where things happen at the speed they happen at because you're working with the general public, and you can't be there like, you need to move a ton of topsoil every single day. You can't say that to someone from the general public, especially a volunteer, because they would just leave. And also, it's not a reasonable demand of an average person. It is the demand in general in commercial archaeology, however. And like, it does. It just, there's all of these little tiny niggly bits where I'm there like, oh, you shouldn't have done that yet. Oh, this is a problem because you need to have. Oh, why is it this shape or that shape when it should be this shape or that shape? And like, I know all of this secondhand. So I have had to recommend to my wife that I know you love the concept of a space archaeologist, but if you read this book, you'll get really cross at these space archaeologists because they're doing it wrong. And it's tough. And I don't want archaeologists to only have that experience, but also I don't want people to read that and think that's what archaeology looks like every time without fail, right? And also, I have this concept of an idea of, falling into the past or awaking a historical figure or whatever, that sounds really fun. So why haven't I written it? Well, because when I had the idea, I was in the midst of writing the Guardian Cadet series. So I put it on the back burner. And then I was in the midst of writing the Interplanetary Alliance series, and I put it on the back burner. And I was in the midst of writing Not That Kind of Dandy and Welcome to Humanity and Cloud Chronicles. And it's just not made it to the forefront yet. Will it ever? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I love the idea of it. I love knowing that I have the idea of it. I love being able to look through the book, but also, I sort of kind of never look through the book. So this is the big flaw with the collection point, is that because I'm constantly having new ideas, like I said, I have 1,000 more books in my brain. And because I'm constantly having new ideas, I rarely ever look through this for an idea of what to write. Every time I want to write a book, it's either the thing that I haven't been able to forget, or it's the newest, shiniest thing that I want to focus on next, right? And that's not saying that any of these ideas in here are bad or are ones that I don't want to write or didn't want to write or never will want to write. It's just that I don't tend to look through it very often because I always have new ideas. But then that was already a problem before I ever had a collection point. It's just that now, if I'm thinking, I'm sure I had an idea like this, I can go back through and find that information. Like Clarity Chronicles started out, it was one of the earliest things? Yeah. It is before the Guardian Cadet series. Yeah, it's before the Guardian Cadet series in that original Dragonfly notebook. So we have, oh my gosh. Yeah, the Guardian Cadet series one is on page 19 and 20. The original idea for Clarity Chronicles is on page 9. Because I had the idea for it yonks ago. I had the idea for it back before 2020. And I wrote that idea down in my collection point, and then I actually did come back to it. I actually did go back and go, okay, well, what did I write down for this idea that I now want to pursue? And yeah, okay, so it never left my mind. But I did go back to it and I read the premise in this notebook. I'm looking at it now. And then on the notes page, I have put page 53, Clarity Chronicles, because that's where the idea leaps to. It becomes the Clarity Chronicles, and therefore go to page 53 to get the most up-to-date information. Clarity Chronicles 1, 2023. So it is useful, even if it's sort of unexpectedly useful, or useful in the way that, not even unexpectedly, but like useful in a weird way. Because I didn't need it to be able to figure out what I wanted to do with Clarity Chronicles. I didn't need it to remember that I wanted to do Clarity Chronicles. But it was helpful in remembering what had inspired me to do Clarity Chronicles in the first place, what the basic original premise was, how I wanted that premise to look compared to how it looks to 4 years later when I had the opportunity to actually start writing it, how things grow and adapt and change. And I think that's part of what I really love about continuing the collection point, is being able to see how things grow and adapt and change over the years and over the actual writing process, not just over me being able to, start scribbling down ideas, and me growing as a person and a writer, but also how things change based on actually writing it. Like I had in here from, again, that original collection point, Not That Kind of Dandy Pirates series. And that only has Not the Fainting Kind as a premise in it. Not the Fighting Kind didn't exist when I first wrote this down. And like, there's so many pieces of it that are like that, where I've got the original idea of the IPA novels and I've written on it in the notes section, revamped completely, go to page, whatever page it is, 31 to 34, to read the new revamped version of the IPA, because the original IPA idea was follow new people who have just joined the Interplanetary Alliance. They are being introduced by their inducting ambassador. When they're fully inducted, they can appoint their own ambassador, but for now, they have this one. That was the original premise of the IPA, and I wrote pieces for that. And then it grew, and I was like, is it interesting to be introduced to this brand new world? Yeah, probably. Do I have a solid idea of what this world looks like yet? Nope, not really. And then I started playing around the world more and more, the concept of this interplanetary alliance. And did I really want to make something so like intrinsically political as this ambassadorial situation, this introduction situation? And the answer was no. I want to dick about on a spaceship with people. Like, I just want a small crew on a little ship doing whatever it is that they're doing, right? And I have no regrets about the way that that has changed from its original premise to unlicensed delivery and subsequent other IPA books. And like, I have so many ideas. What page was it again? 31 to 34. 31 to 34. I can read page numbers. 31 to 34. And like, I have in here now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ideas. And like, I've said that before. I've said I have 9 IPA book ideas, and not all of them are going to turn into books. For sure. Not all of them are going to turn into books. And I'll probably have more other ideas at some point. But in the meantime, how wild is it to think that it went from this one ambassadorial meeting book to 9 different you are on a spaceship concepts of books? And yeah, so even if I don't go back and look at those original ideas again very often, or try and find something to write from this, it is so fascinating to be able to literally trace ideas from conception to reality, and how wild that is, and how much things can change over the course of life or writing, or, well, really both. So yeah, that's how I track my ideas. And yes, this will be coming back this year when I do my works in progress video, which should be sometime between July and September. I'm not exactly sure when. I'm never exactly sure when, but it should be sometime there. And oh, by the way, I have officially been accepted to table at May MCM once again. I was hoping to have the Not the Kind of Dandy omnibus ready for that, but unfortunately it is taking a little longer to pull together, and it looks like it might not be out this year at all. I know, saddest face ever. You can still get the 2 original parts of it. It's just the short story part that's just not available right now. And it will come, I promise. And I also probably won't have the next IPA book yet, but I might see if I can wrangle together some pieces of promo for it so that there's some exciting new stuff. But otherwise, I will be at MCM Comic Con in May at a table selling all of my books. These books here that already exist. I will also have my brand new Clarabri Chronicles bookmarks, which are very exciting because that is what's coming after the IPA books. This is definitely the next thing. I know that for sure. I have not finished yet. But the projection is 2026. And for the first time, I probably will have a bigger and longer projected release schedule than I have ever had before. And I will be sharing that, hopefully, in my Works in Progress video somewhere between July and September. As As always, all of the links to find me and my books and everything else you could possibly need is in the description box below. Best place is my website. This channel is not monetized, so if you watch any ads, that's not my business. You can support the channel via my Ko-fi account, which again, as always, is linked in the description box below, right next to the like and subscribe buttons. That word, by the way, was description, not description. And I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.